Hello, my friends. Katie Day with the Moving to Texas team here with another episode of the Real Advice podcast. I am thrilled to welcome this week's guest to the show. She came from the finance world, got into real estate, and has been a real estate agent, speaker, team leader, team builder, community builder, and coach. So I'm just excited because there's so much I know that we're going to unpack today. She is bilingual and an expert in international markets, is a fantastic coach, is just a wealth of knowledge. Please join me in welcoming Sandra Hendrix.
Muchas gracias, Katie.
De nada. And that's we're not gonna try to take this a bilingual podcast because my Spanish is super basic. Despite taking more years than I'd like to admit of Spanish in middle school and high school and college, it's all been lost. So we'll have to stick to English today. But thank you so much for joining me today. I'm super excited to dig in with you. And yeah, how are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Katie. I'm super happy to have to be here because you know that I admire you, your all of your work, your trajectory. I think that you're an icon in the marketing and branding in the real estate business.
Well, man, I appreciate you. We could just end the podcast here. That was great. No, I'm kidding. So, I know that you were previously in the finance world and then you moved into real estate. What was that transition like, or how did you kind of fall into real estate?
Well, on college, I majored in business management, and then I had a master in finances.
Okay.
And about when I was 22, a long time ago, I started it as a stockbroker
Okay.
for the stock market, and I did that for 13 years. And that built a very solid foundation of understanding business from a perspective of numbers.
Yeah.
All of business is numbers, right? And the only real way of, and mainly when we're talking about money, right? I think that we build wealth through investments in the stock market, and sometimes through insurance, through property management, which is through buying investment properties, developing, and real estate, right?
Yeah.
So all of those are totally into how do we look at money.
Yeah.
And in the stock market, when you're a stock broker, you really need to understand the macro and the micro of all of the markets. That's what Steve Harney talks about, right? It's not
For
just
sure.
looking
Yeah.
at the interest rates, but also looking at the all of the elements that play in the macro and the micro in the economy: inflation, the GDP, everything that impacts how money moves
Yeah.
along the economy. So when I transitioned from, because I had my son at 34, so I was in that market for a long time. I became an entrepreneur, and that culture of, because when you're a stockbroker, it's totally true that you need to present yourself as the expert, right?
Hmm.
And that was true when I started my business. I started. I know that it was very polarized in the beauty industry, and I had 13 beauty salons. And then when I sold that business, my brother, who owns the master franchise of Coldwell Banker, said, "You need to come this way."
Come
So
come here. Yeah.
in 2003, I started as a real estate agent first, and then I transitioned to Coldwell Banker, and I have been in real estate, active as an agent, as a broker, and in charge of operations for Coldwell Banker, and with Tom Ferry since 2016 as a coach.
Just out of curiosity, how did you join Tom Ferry as a coach? Like, how did that come about?
Because with Coldwell Banker, I have been in charge of developing the business model, all the
Okay.
SOP, the systems, the training, the marketing, all of that. And one day my brother said, look into Mike Ferry. And when I was Googling Mike Ferry, I saw Tom Ferry. And I was like, I love Tom Ferry. It was love at
Yeah.
first sight. And it was super crazy because at that time, the person in charge of international for Coldwell Banker said, I need you to help me organize a summit for your colleagues. And he said,
Yeah.
and I'll give you anything you want. And I said, I want Tom Ferry to come to Mexico because we couldn't really afford him. And he helped me, and that's how we had Tom come to Mexico
Nice.
in 2014. Time flies.
Yeah. I mean, that was almost 10 years ago, right? Um,
Yes. And then I went to Summit. I fell in love with the idea. I started as a client, which I'm
yeah,
still a client, and then I transitioned to a coach.
for sure. What advice would you give to someone if they were on the fence about hiring a coach, right? Like, obviously, you're a coach yourself. You are coached as well. It's something that's obviously been an integral part of your business for now over 10 years in the real estate world. What advice would you give to someone if they weren't sure about kind of pulling the trigger on coaching?
You need a coach. I mean, when I started my business, I hired a coach. He was a coach that worked processes.
Okay.
And then later on, when I started in real estate, I hired him to understand how to create all of the business models, the SOPs, all of that. And
Yeah.
then I became a coach myself. I got certified by the International Coaching Federation. I don't think I could understand my life without a coach. And I have had a coach since 2000, 23 years now.
Yeah.
So a coach, and you know that really well, is not just your sounding board, but it's someone, it's so different from a consultant or a therapist, right?
Sometimes
Your,
a little bit of all three, but yes, for sure.
exactly. But your coach really gets to know you in a way where the accountability is a walking by your side
Yeah.
process. And we always need feedback, and the most constructive feedback that you can get is from a coach, and
Yeah.
that's how we move forward. And Tom, being a visionary, he always lets us know in advance what is the direction of the market. So as a coach, you need that to be prepared, like this market.
Yeah, no, for sure. The accountability is huge. Having that sounding board is huge for me. And I think that being involved in a community that is so expansive, right? Like, obviously, Mexico, United States, Canada, it's international, across in Europe as well. But like, across the country and across North America, what I love is being able to really understand what's happening in other markets, really understand what has worked well for other people, right? And it's helped me to kind of shorten the learning curve and avoid some missteps. If I have a new business idea or venture, right, and I start talking to you about it, and you're like, oh, well, so and so's done that before, and this worked well, but what you're saying didn't work well, so go talk to them, and you're able to learn a lot. So I really have enjoyed that, in addition to just having a coach, right, being involved in a larger community is great as well.
I think that the ecosystem in the Tom Ferry case, it's huge
Yeah.
because it's like-minded people, but it's a very giving community. And it's that you reach out for somebody and you know that you're going to get assistant help, counseling, or even just being heard, right? And the amount of resources available in the ecosystem in Illum and amongst our peers
Yeah.
is huge.
So you mentioned one of the things is like, you were like, especially in today's market, right? Having a coach is important and is helpful, to obviously hone your skills and to have the accountability, and for all of the things. What are some of the things that you're coaching your clients around right now in today's market, right? What are some of the things and mindset and just items that you're kind of seeing as common themes across many different clients?
A lot is mindset because there's a lot of agents that have been going at 100% for a lot of years with the changing markets. And what I have seen is a lot of burnout.
Yeah,
So we cannot stop. So we need to understand a balance because the balance is very, very delicate of work life, right?
for sure.
And also building yourself through exercise, meditation, eating healthy, you know that perfectly well, and having the access to planning, tracking and measuring and being accountable. Tracking and measuring really makes the difference in the business. So I coach a lot to tracking and measuring and numbers. And right now it's like Tom very well said, we need to be analytical and understand the market.
Yeah,
It's not about just going into social media saying just listed, just sold.
yeah,
Clients need to know what's happening in the market. Like Steve Harney says, a lot of the agents know what's happening. Some of the agents understand what's happening. Very few agents explain what's happening, right?
yeah,
So instead of fearing the interest rates and fearing pricing adjustments or understanding the inventory, we need to really get to explain it in terms of how it works out instead of ghosting our agent or
yeah,
saying, "Oh well, no, you don't qualify." What are the
yeah,
options,
for
right?
sure.
So that's a
Um,
big part of the coaching right now.
so many great things to unpack, but the physical health is super important. If you aren't putting the right things, eating the right things and getting exercise and getting enough sleep, you're not going to perform well. So that's obviously so baseline, and so big for mindset. One of the things that you said was that you want to make sure that you're tracking and measuring and being held accountable to that. What are some key things? Like if I were a team leader, I am, so I'm selfishly asking this, what would be the key things that you would want my agents to track and me to track for my agents?
The basic, and we know those super basics, are the hour of power. But
Yeah,
hour of power is not solely expressed in actual conversations, but how many people you get in contact with every day, right? So hour of power, I break hour of power into the strengths of the clients. Some clients are amazing at the phone. Some clients are amazing with social media and engaging in social media and having the conversations inside social media.
yeah,
Some other clients are amazing at networking and socializing. And others are really good at door knocking and open houses or just meeting random people in the coffee shop or at a restaurant or at an event, right? So the first thing we need to track and measure are conversations, however they happen.
I like
So it's
that.
I mean, you go like with your pen and one conversation, two conversations. But
Yeah, yeah,
there has to be a way that we have them up and visual, but also in a system. That's part of why Tom created the 100K, right?
yeah,
Because with the 100K, you have a dashboard and you have all of the systems, the scripts. What do you do now? What do you do next? What's following? And it allows us to understand what we're doing. Now, if you don't track and measure, and at the end of the month, you as a team leader ask your agent, mm, did you have appointments? No. Did you have listings? No. And what about the 3 leads that I gave you? Oh, they didn't answer. And if I have a theory that all of the agents hate, but I'm like, if you if you come up with the numbers and you don't do them just to get out of the way, in the first 2 months, we will see that what you're saying are excuses because then there's no turnover, right? There's
yeah,
no conversion. So tracking is huge. Conversations, however they happen, depending on the strengths of the clients,
yeah,
and appointments, dials, and listing appointments and buyer consultations that convert into listings and buyers themselves. That's basic.
yeah. I think
And
that
go
I
ahead.
think that a lot of times what happens is we lose sight of that, right? And things, an initiative starts happening or a challenge starts happening or different things start happening. And so like, okay, well now we need to also track, we need to track social media posts. You need to track how many DMs you send. You need to track this and you need to track that and how many videos you shoot and how many phone calls you make and how many open, and the list then gets longer and longer. And so I love how simply you broke that down. And that also you said, the conversations can stem from multiple different sources. It doesn't always have to be phone calls. Those obviously should be a baseline, but then it may be the open houses, the networking, the meetups with people that the conversations over DM and things like that. So it's not just linear in one thing. I love that.
Yeah, because when I was an agent, the worst thing that could happen to me was cold calling, cold, cold, cold.
Yeah.
So I would go to the Starbucks in the area and have my business cards that would be very differentiated than what was out there, QR codes, all of that, and start a conversation. Part of my budget, including telling the person behind me what were they going to have that day and treating them for that. And from that sole action, I got so many transactions. So tracking and measuring and understanding that prospecting is a lifeline of our business in whatever shape or form you decide to have it, and at least 3 or 4 lead sources.
So one thing that we didn't talk about having a conversation around, but I feel like I kind of want to touch on, if you're open to it, is
Sure.
AI. Because
Oh,
I was just remembering you had posted a video the other day of you speaking, but it wasn't actually you. It was like an AI avatar. And so, I think that that's so cool. I haven't tried it yet. It's definitely like on my list, but it's not high on the priority list for me. But what do you think is AI's impact in the real estate industry right now? Because I think that it's a buzzword. I think everyone's talking about it. Everyone's excited about it. But then it's like, well, in actual practice, what do you think is the impact in real estate?
I think that it's our best assistant first in terms of simplifying small tasks, just as a video, chopping it and having the subtitles. Like a long form video, you just introduce the YouTube link and it'll chop and give you
Yeah.
subtitles and everything that you need for that. But I think that the most important is understanding the basic tools of AI and the basic marketing. Because if we go into ChatGPT or into whatever AI thingy, because there are so many, Bard and Merlin and Monica and all of those, but let's talk about ChatGPT. And you just go and randomly write something, it's like it's not going to work. You have to teach it. It's an extension of you.
Yeah.
And for me, the ideal client profile, defining your audience and teaching ChatGPT about your audience using prompts based on emotions, because we know that the basic marketing is based on emotions, pain and
Yeah.
pleasure, right? So it goes back to that.
Yeah.
And understanding that marketing is transactional, but branding is transformational. So we are going to have the ideal client profiles. I always ask to have between 5 or 6, create the chain of prompts, and using that ideal client profile, create the marketing around that. And then it simplifies. Who are you talking to? What do they need to understand? What do they need? And working that as if it were your marketing strategy. And then you will be
Yeah.
amazed at the titles, tags, meta descriptions, thumbnails, words, SEO that come from there. It's incredible. And then, yes, having an avatar of yourself, Katie, I think it's fundamental. Not that it's going to substitute you, because it won't, but for repetitive tasks or creating a video library for training, because you create the avatar once and then you just feed it the scripts, and then you have yourself talking about SOPs, like perhaps scripts, objection handlers, the
Yeah.
30-60-90 training, the
Yeah.
onboarding, or instead of a message, an automated message in a DM, it's you
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, hello," blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
And
No, it's interesting.
market updates. Oh boy, just the hot sheets. You have to get a chat GPT for and the extension that allows us to submit files,
Yeah.
attachments. That's incredible. You get that done in a second. And then if you have the plugins like Canva, like the Excel, like slides or presentations,
Yeah.
that really changes your life in a second. Runway ML is one of my favorites, text to image. So I think that if you are in a listing and listing description, please, for the love of God, don't write beautiful, incredible, charming, enchanting. I'm like, those are not SEO or keywords or titles, right?
ChatGPT has some very specific words that it always uses in listing descriptions that I remove before posting it on the MLS. But yeah, there are some funny adjectives that they seem to always use.
Right. So I there's a function in the settings of ChatGPT where you tell ChatGPT who you are
Yeah.
and how you want it to communicate and the personality style. So
Yep.
I've told that please don't use cheesy words, crazy words, or words that imply that it's you that's writing. It has to be me. And it's
Yes.
incredible.
Yeah, and so what she's referring to are the custom instructions. So in ChatGPT, you have like your little login at the bottom. You click on your email address or your username, and then it'll ask you, what would you like ChatGPT to know about you? And that's where you can put in, that you're a real estate agent, that you work in this area, you help buyers and sellers, you XYZ, whatever. And then it asks you, how would you like ChatGPT to respond? And that's where Sandra's going to say, I don't want you to use any of these words. I want this type of conversation. I want it to be professional. I want it to be frank. I want it to be conversational, whatever it may be. Um, and that's something that I found has helped a little bit. I love how you said that like you should treat it as an assistant, right? Like it's not uh just something that you put it all into one thing. So I actually now have like a YouTube one, I have a podcast one, I have a team SOP one, I have an Instagram one, I have, I even strung in like a Phil Jones one, right? On like some objection handlers and stuff. So like I have so many different kind of channels, right? And conversations that are all different than each other.
You have to treat it like a person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And explain with patience like a person. And we know that if we use ChatGPT and we integrate it with all of the automations we have,
Yeah.
we're really going to work a lot better, mainly lead management with the repetitive tasks of how to work a new lead or how to nurture. Or I'm huge into lead management and conversion rate and all of those SOPs with the CRM. So that's where ChatGPT is really great to help you automate and operationalize those tasks where
Yeah.
most agents say like, how am I going to do this? It really saves us a lot of time, money, and guesswork. And I love AI when you go to listing appointments and you create a degree of separation, just showing the sellers what you're doing with AI there at the listing appointment. So, okay,
Yeah.
you're going to interview another agent. Is this agent going to create everything for you during the listing appointment? Or they're just going to say, oh, I'm going to show you my marketing. No, you will customize the marketing with them in the listing appointment. So I find that that's really valuable. That's just the basic.
I like that. There's definitely a lot of opportunity to be able to differentiate yourself. One thing too, you said you have to teach Chat GPT. I wasn't doing this, and then I forget who said it, but someone said it, and now I have been. Say you put a prompt into Chat GPT and you ask it to create something for you, a caption or a listing description or whatever, and then it uses the words that you don't like. I then say like, "Thank you for your response. I rephrased it." and this is how, this is what I'm going to use, or this is what I like, please reference this the next time I ask you for a listing description, right? Like, so I tell it like what edits I made, because what I was doing was I was editing it, right, posting it, and then every single time I'm editing it. And so it was Will Draper said that, like, the more that you tell it, like, okay, what you said was good, but this is better. What you said was okay, but this is how I like it to sound. That more and more as time goes on, it'll get closer and closer to where you don't have to make edits, right? It'll learn.
Or where you'll say, because I started seeing that if you just gave it an instruction, it'll start writing. It's very
Yeah,
reactive. So I
for sure.
say, before you start writing, let me give you context and perspective. Do
Yeah,
not start writing until I ask you to start writing. The more, the you have to be vigilant of how you write,
yeah,
spell, vocabulary, grammar, and how you give it the instructions. So today,
yeah,
so I say, after I finish, you're going to act as a summarizer, an analyst, a consultant, as Tom Ferry, as Katie Day, as Phil Jones. And are you familiar? First, you have to say, are you familiar with?
yeah,
And then when you give it the custom instructions also, that also piles into how we'll start getting to know you. And then it gets scary because it starts talking and writing like you.
yeah. That's what I need it to do, right? And then I can just set up the automations to respond to my emails, and then ride off into the sunset. Come down and eat tacos in Mexico City with you.
Right.
Okay, I want to switch gears a little bit. I wanted to go down the AI path. And obviously we could spend hours on that. There are so many things and directions that AI could go, but I want to kind of go back a little bit. You've mentioned a few times SOPs, right? And that with CB Mexico helped to build the SOPs, there. And I know that's something that I don't want to say known for, but I know you're very good at. What advice would you give to agents that are looking to start their SOPs? Because I think we all get into real estate to make money and sell houses and help people and do all of those things in some iteration of that. And then at a certain point we realize that we've got to run this like a business if we're going to stay in business and have any sort of life, right? And so SOPs are very difficult to build. So what advice would you give to an agent if they don't have any and they want to build some SOPs?
Well, get a coach or join
No, after
established.
they hire you. No. Um,
Get a coach or join Katie Day or go to established brand because you're gonna. This is, and I say it with the utmost grace. The solo agent will not have as many chances as an agent with a team because there's only so much you can do as a solo agent. However, if you want to write your SOPs as a solo agent, ChatGPT again will help. Googling specific basic SOPs for real estate, for prospecting, listing, for the listing appointment, for listing to launch. Once we have the marketing for the listing, you have to focus on the 5 basic areas that you have in the business, right? So prospecting, the pre-listing appointment, the listing appointment, the marketing, all of the checklist that has to go from once you launch that listing to offer and then offer to close. Same with buyer, and now more than ever, the buyer consultation is fundamental.
yeah.
The eternal client, I love the eternal client. What's the follow up, the nurture, all of those areas that you have to look into, and perhaps the basic job descriptions of the assistant and the marketing person. Because
Yeah.
honestly, as a solo agent without an assistant and a marketing person, it's complicated to be by yourself.
For sure, for sure. No, and I like the breakdown kind of the entire transaction, right? Like from the, hey, I don't have any clients yet, to now I've set an appointment. So what do I do? Now I'm on the appointment. What do I do? Now they're a client, contract to close, all of the things. Because I think, especially for me, when we started our team, we were like, okay, we're doing too many transactions to be able to service our clients at a high level. So we need to bring someone on. And we brought on an agent and we had no SOPs, right? And it was just kind of like, everyone was kind of figuring things out. And so, then we realized when we would pop in at an open house and like, my agent didn't have a sign-in sheet, no lights were on in the house, and they're sitting on the couch. We're like, okay, like we need to write these down in tedious detail of like what we want you to do.
Exactly.
And that's where, I think individual agents, as you're kind of starting out in your career, especially if you're established and have things that you do, right, being able to write that down so that you're able to transfer those skills if you hire more agents, or if you hire a marketing coordinator, or if you hire a TC, is just so imperative. It's so important.
Well, if you're a solo agent, you might get along
Yeah.
with a lot of pitfalls and J curves, right? You know, the valley of despair. But if you're going to start hiring, you really, really, truly need to be in an ecosystem that will allow you to have access to the learning resources. Because by
Yeah.
yourself, this I think that one of the urban legends of being a realtor is that it's easy, and it's
For
not.
sure. For sure.
It's a very specific, that you need a lot of experience and very specific skills to make it work. It's like being a stockbroker. You wouldn't be a stockbroker just because you thought that you could feel like it and start gambling other people's money in the stock market, right? It's the
Yeah.
same in real estate. I think that one of the legends that we need to demystify is that it's flexible, that you can do it at your own time and your own pace, it's easy, it's really hard, and that you make a lot of money with no effort.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's, I have many thoughts on this, but I think that it's too easy to get into, right? I mean, you said like, it's similar to stockbroker, but like I would assume that you had more certification required in the finance world than you do here. Yes?
Yes, totally. You have to go through all of the tests and all of the program, and it's hard. And you
Yeah.
have to start at a very basic entry level.
Yeah.
Very basic.
Well, and so in real estate, when I think about it, it's easy to get into, right? I think that there should be some requirement. Like here in the States, I don't know your familiarity with but like in Texas, right? Like in order to become an appraiser, I'm pretty sure you have to have a college degree, right? You have to do a certain amount of hours of classes, and then you have to be basically like an apprentice or an intern and shadow another appraiser for I think almost 2 years or a year or something like that, right? And so we have a shortage of appraisers here in Texas because of that, right? And it's like to be a real estate agent, you take, how many ever hours of classes, you pass a test, and then like here you go, you're off to the races. And so, I'm a strong proponent of like either more time requirement, right? Or, some sort of apprenticeship, or, something that's required. But I think the problem is, almost every brokerage, like you can just join, right? And they don't want to implement that. So I don't
But
know.
imagine from Mexico down, you don't
Yeah.
even have to have a license,
Oh, wow.
and there's no MLS. So it's zero regulated. So that makes it super challenging, right? So all of my clients that are outside of the US, they're like, oh, the US is a dream real estate market, and it is.
Yeah. That's
Mhm.
interesting. And so if there's no licenses, how do you like, because I mean we have our license, it's tied to the MLS, that's where we put in properties, that's where they then, go out to other, brokerages and agents and consumers and all the things, right? Like if you took a listing tomorrow, how would you market it?
In the websites, in the portals, you don't have an MLS or with
So
other agents.
you put it on specific websites, and then you reach out to other agents and things like that?
You put it on the websites. The general public can go into that website, look what like do a search with filters with what we're looking for, like an IDX,
Yeah.
and with the sign. But it's incredible that sometimes one house or one property has 10 signs. and different price points and different photos and different marketing. It's a mess. And that's true in some markets in Europe.
Yeah.
And in some markets in Europe, it's only dual agency. If
Yeah.
you can, if you have the listing, you have to have the buyer. So it's a different market everywhere, and it's not as automated. It's not so system rich as it's in the US, and it's a very 1950s market outside of the US.
That's intriguing. That would make me think that, if I were an agent in Mexico or in another country that's like that, like you would have to go affiliate yourself with a large brokerage. I know y'all run a very large, organization there, right? Like you would have to go with the big name, right? If you just signed up, I mean, you're not really even signing up for anything. But if you just started selling houses, like you would have to go with someone that has, the eyes and has the websites and has the presence and things like that. Like,
Everything.
um,
But for example, if you were an agent in Mexico and allowed to work in Mexico, you would kill it just because of your marketing and your branding.
like me,
Yeah. Like there's only a handful of agents in Mexico or in Latin America or even Europe at that point that has
yeah.
the marketing that you have.
Well, thank you. One, but I'm just so intrigued by this. I'm like quiet because I'm thinking so much. I'm stumped over here. That's interesting. That's
Like, for
interesting.
example, my Tom Ferry clients in Europe are wildly successful because of the social media, the marketing, and the branding, the SOP. Like, because we have made Tom Ferry like pockets
Yeah,
in Mexico, in some areas in Mexico. In there's very few in Europe, but the ones that do it, and some in the islands of the Caribbean and Latin America. And it works incredibly well because
yeah.
they have such an immense degree of separation,
Yeah, I
right?
can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Um, I'll switch gears one more time. If you could offer any advice or recommendations, I guess more so, recommendations on something that people should either read or listen to, or, what's something that you feel is a great professional development, or personal development kind of book or podcast, or, something that people should tune into.
Well, The Founders, which is one of the podcasts that Tom recommends, and it's impressively good. It gives you so much insight and light into the entrepreneurial world. My favorite book is The Four Disciplines of Execution with Sean Covey. And then Who, Not How with Dan Sullivan. That book is to die for. Profit First, I don't remember the author. And James Clear, Atomic Habits. And there's one that's so good that's called Fanatical
Yep.
Prospecting with Jeff Blount. And uh-huh.
Do you have more?
Oh yeah, I'm an avid audible. I'm super crazy about, like, my clients are there. I study a lot, and
Yeah.
I am super nerdy in that way. So when I tell my clients on the Sunday plan day, okay, guys, study day. Today I'm going to study this, and this. A lot of clients have said this week she's gonna be extra sharp.
Oh,
So
yeah.
what do we need to do? And mindset, I think that Jay Shetty is
So good.
incredible
Yeah.
for mindset. And of course, Tim Grover. And there's an incredible Andrew Huberman of the
Okay.
Huberman Lab, because he goes deep into how to understand the mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
like that. The the tactics and things like that are great, but then going a little bit deeper is beneficial as well.
Well,
Um,
and of course, for real estate podcasts, Tom Ferry, the Tom
of
Ferry
course.
podcast
Yeah.
experience.
The you mentioned James Clear, and like Atomic Habits is one of my favorite books. I probably read it every other year, maybe every 18 months or so. But one of the things that I really like about James Clear is he does a weekly email,
Hmm.
right? The 321 email. And that always has just good little nuggets, right? Whether it's things, takeaways from his book, other points, quotes from other people, and ideas that I always really enjoy, because it's a quick breakdown, right, of different things. And it's nice to have that as opposed to, you
Exactly.
know, reading the book every single day, every single week. So I like his emails. If you haven't signed up for those, I would recommend doing so. Um, Man, I feel like I could continue to ask you questions, but I have one final question for
Go
you.
ahead.
And that is, if it were your last meal on earth, what would you be eating?
Oh, my adored salad that I super love. I have a crafted salad. I follow Dr. Mike Heyman. If you don't follow him, follow him. You're gonna fall in love with him.
Okay.
And it's a colorful vegetable salad that gives me so much energy, and my body loves it. And it's with egg whites, hard boiled, and that's my favorite meal in the world. Super boring.
I like it. I like it. No, staying healthy. So I can appreciate that. Well, I appreciate you very much. Thank you so much for all of the knowledge and information. If someone wanted to connect with you, where would be the best place for them to connect?
Instagram, it's Sandra underscore Hendrix, like my name underscore. Send me a DM, and I'm there for you. Whatever you need, please feel free. I always answer.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katie. I appreciate you having me here. You know, I super love you, and thank you, thank you, thank you.